whose psyche is always in between worlds, where time and space have created a sense of psychological uncertainty. And secondly, while this state of uncertainty often disorients the individuals, making one subject to an indeterminate identity, it also allows her to exist as many, expressing the voices of the multitudes that lie within her and promising to sound the voices of those selves that have yet to be discovered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Nidhi, for having utilized the time quite well. Our next presenter, the last for this session, is Ms. Rajni Jairam. May I please call upon Ms. Rajni Jairam to make a presentation on the theme of From Margins to Mainstreams.
Good evening all. I am the only one belonging to a different domain. I am basically a Sanskrit professor from Bangalore, but I thought that the classical literature has a lot to say about how it can be merged into the mainstream. When we come to literary perspectives, it may be observed I am mostly concentrating on the epic Mahabharata, which is ever and anon in the history, mainstream of human history. And in this epic, Vyasa has shown that there is nothing called center or periphery, and there is nothing called marginalized and mainstream. All of them are brought on a common podium, and every individual is like a collinear point on a straight line. Coming to the next aspect, epical dimensions. If you consider the authorship of the epic, Vyasa himself was born out of a very unlikely union between a very awe-inspiring sage taken over by the beauty of a fisherwoman Satyavati. Therefore, he belonged to a multicultural setting, and he knew how a person of his lineage, of his combination, of his cultural diffusion should be considered in the society. Therefore, he came up with the point that nobody should be included or excluded. Everybody should be taken for their attributes and not for anything else. He also said, Na manushat shreshthataram kinchit, which means that human being is the measure of all things. Therefore, we find that in the epic, there is the absence of social and political marginalization. If it is social, the so-called Shudras and women got back their spaces, and if it is political, the king who was not proper was sacked, unlike our own times. Women were given a place of pride, because the epic itself is totally women-centric if you read it from today's perspectives. The women in Mahabharata had a strong intellectual and spiritual presence, and they portrayed as teachers of mankind. The Samanya Dharma was common to both the sexes. They could argue with equal merit and competency with the power of arrogance shown by the kings and the power of scholarship shown by the sages. They shared life which was mutual, respectable, and nobody censured the other. We can have various analogies which I cannot come out here because of the time constraint. To name a few, we have there Shakuntala, the lady who taught Dushyanta what was family life, what was the responsibility of a householder. Then we have Savitri, who argued with the god of death and taught him the principles enveloping the life of human beings. We have Vidura, who made her indolent son win against the enemies who were the strongest. We have Damayanti, who fought for herself. Coming to Varna and visualization of the concept, most of us construe Varna as the complexion of the person. Let us be very clear. Vyasa means it is the social calling. The four Varnas have to work in synchronization and each of them have to do the duty assigned to them so that the societal structure moves in the right direction, equilibrium is maintained in the society and there is all-scale harmony. It is a barometer of essence and each person was considered for his attributes and not for his complexion. I give you here an example. If you consider the entire epic enveloped in a triangle, the centroid of the triangle is the content of the epic. The three vertices are Krishna Dvaipayana, Vedavyasa, dark in color, born on an island. Draupadi, called as Krishna because of her dark complexion, born from the fire, that is Agni, and the Hindu pantheon Krishna, who was also dark in color. These three people ruled and made the decisions, and they were the people who were responsible for what the epic is, was, and will be. Coming to the governance and leadership, if you think it was partial, it was not at all. There is a classic example of a king called Vena who was massacred and killed like a mad dog because he did not comply with the scriptures and also he was not complying with what was called institutionalized. We also have the example of Devapi and Shantanu, the two brothers. There is no other instance when the younger brother superseded the elder brother and took the throne. The elder brother had to abdicate his throne because of his shortcomings, loss of interest and also physical shortcomings in the form of leprosy, and Shantanu was placed in place of Devapi. That shows how the quality rules over all other things. Punishment or tyranny, I have touched upon it about Vena who was killed by the Humkaras of the sages because he lacked the attributes of being a good king. The king was supposed to give protection to social order and not much of any kind of oppression was found in those times. If the leadership was not responsible, then there was a total collapse of the system, the leader was removed and a new rule came in. This is shown in the way how the Kauravas were completely washed out after the Kurukshetra war and they remained only in name. Nama Shesham. They remained only in name and there was not a single representative to say that I am a Kaurava. Anthropological evidences, sociology and political ideology also point out that whether it is literature or whether it was the happening of the war, there was absolute absence of marginalization. Of course, they did not know the terminologies like marginalization, subaltern theory, etc., etc. But we do have the instances of Bruhannada, we do have the instance of a king called Bhagashvana, we do have the instance of an attendant of Kubera called Sthulakarna, who were all in our own time transgenders. As far as relationships were considered, relationships were initiated and they were sustained and enhanced. There was this concept of self-reproach. As far as hierarchy was concerned, there was this kind of what you call in the current days, in the corporate jargon, the inverted pyramid model. Absolute absence of hierarchy where every human being was considered for his moral and other attributes. Therefore, anybody could supersede anybody. The society was more liberal and believed in the sanctity of women. You can see that in the process of Levirate, which was the procreation of children through surrogate father. I am given the tip that I have only 1 minute, so I'll just rush through it. I am going to present my paper to the organizers, and if anybody is interested, you can please read. The kinship, I am not going to go further, sir. As far as the qualitative analysis of qualitative analysis of the epic is concerned, sometimes, I cannot say it's always positive, the terms like beauty, virtue, good, ethics and morality were somewhere swayed away, but however, they came back they reinforced through the structures of public discourses, and the epic always showed that good practices will always sustain for a long time. I would skip the next slide. There are evidences, anthropological evidences of merger of the marginalized with the mainstream in the allies that were there with the kings of Mahabharata war. Most of them are of today. They are recognized as the tribals, and they were the ones who helped the mainstream kings. There was absolute and perfect coordination, and everything was fair in the game of war. Of course, there has to be, I think somebody mentioned it in the morning, that in Mahabharata war, there was a lot of anomalies, but everything is fair in love and war. Therefore, some amount of transgression from the rules is always allowed, if it is for a positive effect on the society. I think I will skip all these. I'll come to the conclusion now. The epic, if read in a different perspective, not considering it as a conventional literature which never happened, and arguing that Sanskrit is always the domain of conventional scholars who are not open to ideas, I beg you to differ from today, because the epic has shown that there is every possibility of orientation to a new terrain, which after all these points leads to an embryo of new universal consciousness. Therefore, the epic, being culturally important, multicultural in its thought, emerging to be a transcultural work, becomes the one which strongly positions itself in the mainstream of human history. Thank you very much.
Ms. Rajni Jaina. Now, may I please call upon Dr. Varchanke to come over here and record his observations along with that of the referees out of all these presentations. Dr. Janke, please.
Good evening, one and all. The referees at the dais, dignitaries, paper presenters and dignitary delegate friends. At the outset, I must thank the Nincomplaints for providing us international platform to share our opinion, our views, our thoughts, and especially for the intellectuals and budding researchers. Let me congratulate the paper presenters also for using presentations. All they have shared their critical analysis and thoughtful ideas with us. It's my duty to present here the referee's report. I'm going through the reports. Mr. V.Y. Krishnamurthy has shown in his paper that Indian cinema played a role in forming cultural hybridity, co-ethnicities with regards to food, music, dance, grace and so on. He has also thrown light on rather negative impact of globalization on Indian cinema. It subverts and distorts the rich Indian culture. The second paper presenter, Ms. Moini Fort, made a crisp presentation. She threw light on subalterns and marginalized sections of the society. She has shown that women in the Tanif played are queens in their private groups but are pushed in their periphery by the parochial cryptograph. The next presenter, Ms. Nidhi Khatana, spoke about challenges and hardship of multicultural setup. She has shown that identity crisis is prominent in Mukherjee's works. All diasporic writers are victims of hibernation and non-belongings. The identity of their characters is in motion. The paper was very limited to merely female identity and did not focus on other identities. The last presenter, Ms. Rajni Jairam, talked about the marginal place of women in classical literature. Her paper focused on the social and cultural and political aspects and issues in the epic Mahabharata. It sets a new lens to analyze the epic, and really all the papers were good. Let me conclude with my observations on South Asian literature. It represents post-colonial and diasporic voices widely ranging from multiple issues such as migration and mutual transformation, diasporic nostalgic experiences, identity crisis, ethnicity and cross-cultural conflict, globalization and political tensions, problem of settlement and feeling of hopelessness, communal disparity and violence, marginalization, exploration of culture and history of the nation. But still, there is need of time to focus much light on examination of injustice and painful change, social commitment and human relationship, Dalit consciousness, that is, and subaltern consciousness, inclusion and exploration of the ideology of epoch-making thinkers like Mahatma Phule and Dr. Ambedkar, etc. etc. Thank you very much.
Two things that I would like to bring to your notice. Number one, the paper presenters are supposed to be present tomorrow between 10 and 11 in the morning. The session tomorrow, the first session is going to start at sharp 8 in the morning. And another thing that I would like to share with you is, as there are some questions, doubts and queries from the audience, that is quite natural. The organizers have declared a special hour of questions and answers for tomorrow between this time, that is 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. in the morning. So kindly make it a serious point. The presenters would be present during that while. Also, those that have questions, doubts and queries are required to note their questions down and present them tomorrow to the presenters. Thank you so much. As we have had this session, having come to the conclusion, it's part of my duty to extend a special debt of gratitude to Dr. Subhash Chandke, who spared time with us for chairing the session here. Again, thanks are due to Dr. Ashok Kadam, who acted as the referee for this session, and also Dr. S.R. Mahunkar was acting as a referee here, and all their responses were also presented here by Dr. Subhash Chandke. So, for their work, it is a special gratitude in behalf of the Honorable Nikams and Higher Education and Research Society, as well as in behalf of all of us. It's a special thank you to all of you, sir. After this session is over, the national anthem will be sung in the hall. Now we are immediately moving on to the last session of the day. Thank you so much. I am here to declare the last session. The chairperson of this session is Mr. Samit Maiti. The referees are K. Yakaiya and Mr. B.K. Paikram. So may I please call upon Mr. Samit Maiti on the stage to take over as the chairperson of this session. I would like to also request Mr. K. Yakaiya to come upon the stage. To play as a referee of this session. Also, my request to Mr. B.K. Paikram to come upon stage. Mr. B.K. Paikram to come upon stage to play another referee of this session. Mr. B.K. Paikram, please. We have 4 papers for this session, and then may I call call upon Mr. Srikant S. on the stage for making a presentation, followed by Anamitra Chatterjee. To please come upon the stage for making a presentation. The third presenter is Chanda Mishra. May I please ask you to come upon the stage for making a presentation. And the last presenter would be Mr. Kuldeep Mathur. May I please ask you to come upon the stage. Mr. Kuldeep Mathur, may I ask you to please come upon the stage and make a presentation. It is quite understandable that we have been together on the academic intercourse here. So it's quite natural for us to get a bit tired, but then this is going to be the last session, after which the national anthem will be sung. May I please call upon Mr. Anil Sonone to come forward and welcome Mr. Samit Maitri by offering a bouquet. Mr. Anil Sonone, please. Also, may I request Ms. Dhanusha Vas Desai to come and welcome Mr. Yakaiya by offering a bouquet.